Alright, so we're starting this video outdoors for the lighting, so I can give you a look at a couple of different stocks we're going to try and inlet for this Timney trigger. Actually, I'm going to inlet the second stock. This is an original stock. You can see that has a standard hole for the screw and a little bedding metal in there. And if we can get closer in, notice here that the screw hole, or the screw that actually secures the trigger assembly, has been inlet quite a ways on this one. I point that out because that's going to be one of the reference points I use when I begin to inlet this. So on the second stock, this stock has already been drilled for a bedding pillar. So you can see the hole there. And in one instance this is good because we've already taken out some material. In the second instance it's not so good because we have a handy reference point on the other stock, because the trigger actually comes right back to the center line of the standard hole. So I don't know if you can see there's a mark right here I've made where I'm going to have to start my inlet on the back and a mark on the front. Now this screw hole is very well formed and actually flush with the receiver bottom. So I'm going to use that as a reference point on the front. Alright, so here's the initial grind on the stock. And on the rear hole we've got a small slot. I've gone down a ½ inch to make room for the trigger actuator using a small Dremel bit right in there. And then on the front end, using the large Dremel grinder, I've gone down, if you can see that, about an inch, or just have an 1/8 of an inch. And you quickly realize that your trigger assembly is going to go wall to wall here, so you may as well go side to side here and just in front of that hole there. And then we've got a cutout here on the side for the safety lever. It's going to have to go down a little deeper as that seats further in. Alright, so I've got the hole pretty well drilled out here, and I'm going to take a look at a couple areas. There's where I notched down from the bedding pillar area, which had to go all the way down because there's a little set screw under the trigger actuator they need to make room for. And essentially from right behind the screw hole right here, I've gone down to where there's about an 1/8 of an inch of material here, which I'm not quite sure I'm going to be able to keep. Then there's a little outlet in here for the front pin on the safety actuator, and you're going to have to go a little deeper here because the safety actuator goes down a little bit and comes up through this slot here, which is going to need a little bit more inletting. The width here is good. You're essentially going to want to follow that wall straight down and you'll have enough room. If you go straight back from the outlet for the lug there. And a good measurement point is going to be from the front of your recoil bolt right back to here. Measure on your existing receiver with your trigger mated up. You'll see a distance right from that lug to the front of the trigger right there. So that gives you a good reference point. The distance in here is going to have to be right at a little under that, depending on what you want your clearance to be. Then the other spot is right in here. That base of that 1/8 inch layer that I have left might fit right in there, because I got a little less than an 1/8 and a little more than an 1/8 there, so we'll see how far down I have to go. Alright, so we have these bedding pillar we want to take a look at, which I had to notch out. We'll throw a close-up still of that fitting in place. We needed to make room there for that actuator. So that's a ½ inch deep, 3/8 wide. The actuator is about 1/4 of an inch wide, so you want to make sure that there's enough room for that to move freely. And the other tricky part, since this will rotate, I'm going to have to bed that in place so that it won't float and possibly bind that up when it's in there. So if you're when you start taking this out and you've got bedding pillars, And you're probably going to bed that up anyway because you're going to be taking out a lot of material. A lot of the areas that you want to stay away from is back here, and of course in the front area where it's supporting your receiver. Otherwise you're going to wind up having to bed it anyway. So whichever way you go, keep that in mind. Alright, so we're finally finito, and if you look down there you can see that I still have a thin layer at the bottom. Got a pretty good channel here for the safety. Doesn't really need to be back that far. Go ahead and lower that in there. Your front to back clearance on here, body width on this thing is right at 1.7 inches. You want to make sure that you've got room for the safety travel forward and back. That wound up being about a ½ inch channel there. Get a good look at that. I'll bolt it up. Alright, there's the installed trigger. We've got that set up. Got a little bit more groove behind it because when I was initially laying it in there, if it sits down low, it looks like it's going to sit there. As soon as I turn this over on the side, you'll see something a bit different. So there's our sear. We've got good movement. Goes right to the front of that groove and back for the safety. Slide our bolt in. Nice smooth trigger pull. Move that over to the side. And there's our trigger from underneath. Not much to see there. Looks good. And she's solid, no hair trigger. Now all I gotta do is take it out the range and see how she shoots.